Is this the beginning of the end of the conflict in Ukraine? That might have seemed like a pipe dream not too long ago, but as Ukraine has mounted a spirited defense against Russian military forces, it appears to have become a more realistic possibility. Today, for the first time, some measurable progress may have been made in peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. The sit-down between the two sides held in Istanbul resulted in a pledge from Moscow to drastically reduce their military presence in the capital of Kyiv and around it, and the northern city of Chernihiv. A Russian defense official said the move was being made to, quote, increase mutual trust between the two nations and, quote, create necessary conditions for a peace deal. Speaking after the meeting in Turkey, Ukrainian officials outlined a process for how the two sides might reach an agreement, during which they said control of the Donbass region, which has been a major sticking point, could be up for discussion in future negotiating sessions. There's even the possibility that Putin and Zelensky might meet face-to-face. If the two sides come to terms on an agreement, Ukrainian officials said they'd then try to arrange for both leaders to sign it in person. Now, it would be foolish to take anything the Russian government says at face value. Indeed, when asked about Tuesday's developments at a White House press conference, President Biden expressed skepticism.
We'll see. I don't read anything into it until I see what their actions are. We'll see if they follow through on what they're suggesting. There seems to be a consensus that let's just see what they have to offer.
The Kremlin has given the U.S. and the rest of the world no reason whatsoever to trust them on anything. In fact, the mistrust runs so deep that Ukrainian officials have become seriously concerned they could even be poisoned during these peace talks. Quote, I advise to everyone who's going to any negotiations with Russia not to eat or drink anything and also not to touch any surfaces, Ukraine's foreign minister said ahead of Tuesday's talks. Ukrainians, the U.S., and the entire world surely has strong reason to keep their guard up. But the impact of this conflict has to be taking a toll on the Russians. Casualties are piling up in a way they couldn't have expected. The ruble has taken a hit. Their economy is in a precarious position, to say the least. So could all of this be motivating Putin to finally and seriously consider a deal? Joining us now is Douglas Rediker. He's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, serving as a member of the World Economic Forum on Geopolitical Risk as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. All right, so put this into perspective for us. Can we fairly say that this is real progress towards peace, or is that a bit too far to go?
Well, progress from a starting point of bombing maternity hospitals and razing cities. I guess the fact that they're talking is progress. Do I believe that the talks are going to lead to a sustainable ceasefire that leads to a sustainable peace deal? Absolutely not. I mean, one of the problems you've got is everyone wants to see the bombing stop. They just have different means by which to assume that you're going to get there. And what is kind of missed by the headlines and by the stories that talk about the progress being made is that substantively, the parties have almost no commonality in how this ends. And what I mean by that is if you take the one key point that everybody seems to focus on, which is Zelensky's agreement that Ukraine would not join NATO and would accept a position of neutrality, but they would accept that position if they had security guarantees. Well, the security guarantees would have to come from, amongst others, the United States. And the question is the United States really ready, willing, and able to put our troops in harm's way on behalf of Ukraine if Russia decides to break its word, which we fundamentally agree that it probably will? I don't think so.
Right. It effectively gives it a sort of mini NATO status because it would mean that if we were to enter into this agreement and the Russians were to go back and attack the Ukrainians, this time we would have promised to come to their aid. Let me play this piece of sound from the Pentagon spokesperson, John Kirby, because I got to say that I was more encouraged when I first read about this than I was by the end of the day as to what this all means. Here is John Kirby talking about the redeployment of troops away from Kyiv.
So we ought not be fooling, and nobody should be fooling ourselves, by the Kremlin's now recent claim that it will suddenly just reduce military attacks near Kyiv, or any reports that it's going to withdraw all its forces. Has there been some movement by some Russian units away from Kyiv in the last day or so? Yeah, we think so. Small numbers. But we believe that this is a repositioning, not a real withdrawal.
Now, is it in the Ukrainians' interest to keep making it feel like they are making real progress? Because you read the statements from the Ukrainians, and they're talking about, Zelensky and Putin meeting to sign it in person, et cetera. They make it sound like, hey, we're getting pretty close here.
I'm not sure I would read it that way. I think most of the encouraging words that we've heard have come first from the Israelis when they said they were brokering a peace deal, and now from the Turks because they're brokering the peace deal. And then you do have the Russians claiming, as your lead-in suggested, that they're withdrawing their troops and they're being the humanitarian good guys. I think the Ukrainians have been more cautious. You just played the note from the foreign minister saying, yeah, in the peace deal, don't touch anything, don't drink anything, don't eat anything. I'm not sure that's a recipe for encouraging words towards how much progress they're making. So I think that Zelensky, alongside his colleagues in the government, have been very good about motivating Ukrainians to believe this is a national effort that is gaining traction. It is something that, contrast it with the Russians, who actually don't have even the facts about what's going on. They don't even know there's a war going on. They call it a military technical operation, and their boys are coming home in body bags. So I think that the Zelensky government has done a great job of motivating Ukrainian people and spinning the Ukrainian story. I don't mean spin in a negative way. I mean selling it internationally in a way that is very, very supportive of Ukraine's efforts here. They want to show they've got momentum. They want to show that they are talking to try and end this peacefully. Because, of course, at the end of the day, it is not clear, even if they're making progress on the battlefield, Ukraine is still up against a very formidable army on the part of Russia, which hasn't used a lot of its military equipment. They don't want to go toe-to-toe for the long term.
Yeah. Douglas Rediker, thank you for the reality check. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.